And we are live. Welcome to the first of two MLB Live Before Locks. I'm Josh Engelman. I'm joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. It is Wednesday, July 27th. I cannot believe July is basically over. Every single bit of this year is flying by, but I say good riddance anyway. This year has sucked. Now hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how was that second place in the qualifier last night?
It was pretty shitty, man. Thanks for asking. Was not happy when I woke up this morning and saw it. I'd kind of been paying attention to it, like at night. I knew that the Padres bullpen blew Clevenger's win. I knew, like, basically going into the bottom of the eighth for Seattle, I knew if like Rodriguez and Santana both hit home runs, I would win like everything. But then I realized Rodriguez had hit the inning before, so that wasn't likely to happen. I just went to sleep, whatever. I guess the game might have gone to extras. It ended up being 5-4. But came within 2 points of winning, so that Clevenger win ended up mattering. So yeah, wasn't real thrilled when I looked to see that.
Yeah, that sucks. I like I said to you in DMs, I would rather never know. Like knowing is the worst part of it all. Otherwise, that result just like floats off into the ether for you, and you have no idea that it ever happened. How did your main slate go?
Not very good. Like that lineup ended up finishing 14th in the big tournament, but
Okay.
not good. I mean,
Wow,
for one,
that's a really good lineup. You know, was the qualifier large?
yeah, it was
like to
like
get to 14th.
5,000.
Okay.
It was like, it was 150 max. So I was gonna say, like, one, my main slate didn't go well because I 150 max the qualifier, so that's kind of just throwing away $2,000, give or take.
Yeah.
And then I mean, main slate, I think I had that team, in the top 15. I had another team in the top like 1%. So I think I had two teams in the top 1%. Just didn't go well. Nola was my highest owned pitcher. Yeah, just kind of.
Yeah.
I ended up with like a good amount of Kansas City. They obviously sucked. I had a lot of Milwaukee. That was fine. I had a lot of Tampa Bay, which sucked. I had a lot of Colorado, which sucked. So yeah, it just wasn't a great slate.
Yeah, when you said that lineup finished 14th in the main, I was like how big was the qualifier? Because generally, if you get to 14th in the main with a lineup, if you have that in a qualifier, it's probably at the top of the heap of a qualifier. But when you can 150 max that queue, it's probably big enough that you can still get sniped. Interesting slate we've got here today. Two pitchers north of 50% ownership, which is always fun. 7 games to break down. Got plenty of time to do it. Marcos wants to know how the head-to-head went for you, Adam.
Oh yeah, definitely got killed there. My cash lineup just kind of sucked yesterday. White Sox didn't do anything. Nola sucked.
Hopefully that guy keeps taking them though.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you can always do when you talk about cash is go look at what you know are good DFS players, and if your lineup is very similar to theirs, you don't worry about anything else.
Yeah, you sent that to me last night. I was just like, whew, at least he got the pitchers right, or at least semi right. It wasn't like a total.
It wasn't. Yeah, that lineup wasn't like horrible. Mine was for sure better, but like. Yeah. It wasn't. He wasn't the guy that had been taking my 500s and 1Ks playing like Jordan Lyles and shit.
Right.
But yeah, still will gladly hope that guy keeps running it back. Put it that way.
For sure, he'll run it back until there's like 2 days in a row where it goes wrong, because it's clearly the type of person that reacts to very small, insignificant samples. So it won't take long. You almost need to dump a lot early, like an old school get a hustler. Yeah. So or like scatter enough wins that he doesn't realize he's bleeding out.
Right.
If you go 6 straight, like he's not coming back for game 7. It's a tricky balance. You're ready to dive in. It's an interesting slate, so I'm ready to talk about it if you are.
And to answer King of Smack, no, why would I possibly ever listen to you?
I don't even know what he's talking about.
I don't either. I assume he said something in chat that happened to like come through yesterday or something.
Yeah. Don't worry, chat. Don't worry, anyone in chat. We're probably not listening. I would really like that cold brew right now, but alas, good. I don't have it. Brewers and Twins. 4.6 run implied total for Milwaukee, 3.4 for Minnesota. Corbin Burnes and Chris Archer. Doesn't appear to be an Archer day. 1% ownership, and I only have him at 3, so I'm not going to go there. Corbin Burnes, on the other hand, probably the best pitching option of the day, 10,100. I've got him pretty far clear of every other pitcher from a raw points perspective. He is in 51% of lineups. I don't think any part of that is crazy. Let's just start overall. How do you feel about Corbin Burnes?
Is he not in our top pitchers tool? Am I blind?
I don't know. It seems like the answer is no. Are you on the early slate or the main slate? Because here's my guess. You're on main.
I was on main. Yeah, so 50% projected ownership makes sense to me. I mean, the matchup against Minnesota is not great, but it's not like we have a lot of top tier pitching on this particular slate. Burnes obviously is really, really good. So, I mean, 50% is high, but it's also only a 7-game slate. He has a 32% strikeout percentage, 2.89 xFIP. Obviously just a good option.
Yeah, I have the Twins lineup significantly better than today's Brewers lineup. It's not a lineup with a ton of strikeouts. Arias at the top does not strike out. In terms of matchup, it's not good, but Burnes is just on a different level from a raw talent perspective. I have him 3 full points ahead of Christian Javier, who's the other highly owned pitcher for today. Javier still looks great because he's 8,700 and you're paying the full freight for Burnes, but
yeah, I was going to say that's kind of the only thing I could point to when you look at other pitching. Javier obviously is in a great spot. He's less expensive, but you also can very easily just pair those two together.
And that seems like that will be the clear combo. I assume Burnes Javier is the cash combination, and it's going to be pretty difficult to go a different direction, at least based on what I'm looking at. But we'll hash that out as we get a little bit closer to lock. Does the 50% ownership do anything to you? Are you on a day like today on a 7-gamer? Does that play a more relevant role for you?
Indirectly, because it's not that I'm actively targeting against popular pitchers. That's just not really my strategy in MLB. But the fact that it's a smaller slate, if you have a pitcher pulling 50% ownership, naturally you're not going to get much ownership going to the opposing offense. And then because there's fewer teams than normal, it's just more likely you're going to get to them because they're low owned. So indirectly it plays some sort of a role, but it's still not I personally am going on my way to target it. I think it's an okay strategy if you do, if you do play that strategy a little bit more than I do, but for me, it's more of an indirect result.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything you want to say about Chris Archer today?
Nope. Milwaukee's got plenty of power. Archer so far this year, only striking out 18% of hitters, walking 11%, 4.85 xFIP. Don't really see much to like there.
Yeah, I feel like Chris Archer's been in the majors for 35 years.
I feel like he's been bad for 10 years, and I feel like he was good for 10 years before that.
Yeah, it's having a very weird career. Maybe it's just my brain. Let's start with the Twins bats, because I think that's the more interesting piece here, because we have Burnes at 50% on the opposite side. The Twins are dead last in ownership. They're 13th in our top stack tool. No one's really going here. Are they more appealing to you on a day like today, or is it still just, even in 7 games, even with Corbin Burnes at 50%, Burnes is so good that getting to the Twins, outside of your Buxton one-off type stuff, is there any reason to go to Minnesota today?
I mean, it's mostly that for me. Kind of like I was saying before, I'm more likely to get to Minnesota today than I would have been yesterday when there were 13 games. But I'm still not looking to them and saying oh, I think Minnesota's the key to the slate or anything like that. It's still a really, really difficult spot going up against Burnes. Right now, we have them with a 3% chance of being the top stack, 1% aggregate ownership. So going under owned technically, but still really unlikely to get it done. They are at least a good offense, though. Kind of like I'd said with Atlanta yesterday against Nola, I'm not going to get to them, but you can always make a case for getting to an offense that has that type of power. It's the same thing for Minnesota here. But realistically, I still think it's just going to be tough for me to get to them against Burnes.
Yeah. And inevitably, and this will be an interesting piece for you, figuring out sort of how you want to play MLB DFS ends up being pretty apparent for this type of game. Because if you go to the relay throw for the early slate in lineup study, which you guys should use if you're members at Stokastic and have FC Pro, if you go to look at that, you are going to see quite a few 150 max players that took sizable stands on Minnesota for basically because of the ownership on Burnes is the main take here, and the low ownership on Minnesota. So it's not like you can evaluate their lineups and think like, oh, like how did they get there or whatever. Some of the people are just going to have the strategy of playing a lower owned stack because when it hits, it's going to print. You need to figure out in your mind if that's like a direction you want to go.
Yeah, and so I'd kind of said that yesterday too, talking about that Atlanta Philly game. The way I view this is like you were saying, people have different strategies in MLB. I know that there are really successful players that play. I guess more contrarian might not be the right word, but that focus on negative correlation in MLB more than I do. But the one thing that I think you want to do is figure out like your approach and stick with it. I think you'll get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're going to play the game where it's like, oh, I'm taking the Tigers against Manaea, but I'm not taking the Braves against Nola, but I am taking the Twins against Burns. Like, I think you're more likely to have success either saying like, that's not going to be part of my strategy, or that is my strategy, and I'm just going to win the slates where a popular pitcher does poorly. But then you're not going to be trying to guess which slates those are so much as you're just saying like it's going to happen over the course of a year and I'm just going to win those.
Yeah, it's always interesting to take a little bit from multiple people. You're trying to learn across other pros, but mixing and matching those kind of strategies I think could be really negatively, or it could be problematic for you. And
it's like trying to catch falling knives basically. You're if you're going to take the lowest probability offense as like typically the offenses facing the most popular pitchers are also going to be the lowest probability offenses. That's not always the case, but typically it is. So you're kind of just kidding yourself if you think that you can actually pick off like, oh, well, this 3% offense is actually going to be really good today, but it's going to be bad tomorrow, but it's going to be good the day after that. You're just going to make more money by just putting yourself in a position where you don't really have to worry about it. When that pitcher when the highest owned pitchers do poorly, you're in a position to win. When they do well, you're not. It's kind of just, you're going to be better off simplifying your approach and not trying to guess when it happens.
Your analogy of catching a falling knife made me think it was my grandfather's 80th birthday party. And my cousin was in like this kitchen of a fire hall that we were having the party at, tossing a knife in the air, maybe more than one knife, but tossing them in the air and catching them. You can guess where that went. He immediately, tore his whole hand apart, and they had to take him to the hospital in the middle of my grandfather's 80th birthday party because he was tossing knives in the air and trying to catch them. I did not participate in that. I was too smart for that one. I was like, this dummy's going to cut himself, and I don't care at all.
Who'd you say was doing it?
This was my cousin.
Okay.
And he is my age. Like, this was not he's 8 and I'm 12 and I should have told him not. No. We're same age. We were, let's see, we were 13, 14, something in that neighborhood. Like, I knew way better than to be tossing knives in the air and trying to catch them.
That's the kind of thing that I would end up getting baited into, I think.
Maybe if I were at a party drinking at that time.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not juggling knives at my grandfather's birthday party.
Like, if I saw him start doing it and he was like not getting hurt and then he talked shit to me, I probably would do it.
Not that kind of cousin. Okay. This was not done in a, like, the moment I saw him doing it, I knew it wasn't something I should do.
Got it.
Yeah. There was no competitive balance here. I knew I won before it started. All right, let's talk Brewers bats now. 6th in aggregate ownership, 4th in our top stack tool. I had them 5th, but I actually have the top stack percentage slightly higher than we do. So we're in the exact same spot, same value, 11th on both sides. It's fine. Like, they're just a team, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks pretty good. Archer, 170 expected ISO to lefties this year, 162 to righties. Not striking out a lot of guys, like I'd said before. Milwaukee has plenty of power in their lineup. They're not super cheap, at least 1 through 5, but they're not overly expensive either. And then the bottom of the order is pretty reasonably priced. So yeah, I think ownership's pretty much correct on these guys. They're in a pretty good spot against Archer. I think I'll get to them.
Okay. Does your shirt have the R word on it?
No, it's 2020, so I think they were a Washington football team.
That's a shame. Too bad. You gotta just wear that around.
I was actually thinking when I was walking to get coffee and I was walking back, I hadn't even thought about like what it said on it, but I was just like, oh, I wonder if I'm just like pissing people off as I walk around. But
well, I assume where you're at, it's way more tolerable. You're just people are going to have 40 years worth of.
Yeah, well, where I'm
Washington
at, it's more
gear.
likely on pissing them off just because it's not a Ravens shirt.
That's also very true. Yeah, if you're wearing that in like LA, you probably get stopped every 5 feet. Let's talk through some of these Brewers guys. Do you see any of them being cash options? Yelich, Adames, Tellez?
Possibly Adames. I mean, shortstop obviously is kind of difficult to fill, but you do have the Coors game, so you have Tim Anderson at like the same price. So I guess it's not going to be Adames. Yeah, I don't think that the pricing looks great on any of them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything here. To me, they're a team you're clearly going to get a bit of, but very clearly not the top team or the second best team.
Right.
I have nothing else for Brewers and Twins.
Me neither.
All right, schedule for the rest of the day. Most of this is easy. Your standard issue MLB Deeper Dive coming up at 5 o'clock. Your standard MLB Live Before Lock at 6. You'll get 2 hours taking you into whatever the hell these late slates look like. You can never make heads or tails of it. I think DK locks at 6:40, but I'm sure FanDuel locks at some random time. I'm sure none of the slate sizes are the same, but we will have a deeper dive.
Games, that's all I know.
All right, we will have a deeper dive in a Live Before Lock. That's all that matters. Make sure you're subscribed to the Stokastic YouTube channel. You'll get all your alerts. And then tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time, PGA Live Before Lock, Rocket Mortgage. You guys should check that one out. I actually put in lineups today for golf, which means I probably won't pay close attention to anything tonight, which also means no doubt about it, someone's withdrawing at 5:45 and I'm getting boned. So Patrick Cantlay, I've got my eye on you. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, I need to remember. I skipped golf last week because I didn't get home from a certain activity until like 3 a.m. But yeah, definitely gonna be back playing this week.
When I got home from Chicago on mid-Wednesday, I was like, there's no way I want to just sit down and prep whatever bullshit. Yeah. I missed my one and done last week and I thought I actually made it. And I'm like 99% sure that I had fee now and I like want to jump off my house.
Yeah, I mean, when I got back from Chicago, like midday Wednesday, I was just like, I just want to go to bed. Like, I don't want to do anything. And then like 2 or 3 hours later, I was like, what if I go to the strip club? And so then I, I'll hang out, grab something to eat, get home, get to sleep early. So then, 2 or 3 in the morning, I finally got back to my hotel and was not going to make golf lineups.
You really do need like a Lou Will or Harden jersey or something to traipse around in.
I need the accountant from Entourage that just like yells at Vince that he has no more money.
Oh man, he's got one line about Michael Bublé that just slays me. It's like, that's Michael Bublé, asshole.
I don't remember.
They're sitting in like a diner. Vince buys I think he buys like a Rolls Royce or something, and he's just shitting all over him. You broke. Or he's talking about drama. Nobody could take $1,000 worth of vitamins and fucking live.
Yeah, I remember when
Turtle's got like a $3,000 cell phone. He's like, you can get an unlimited plan for $80.
Yeah, I remember the house where they go like 5 times the budget and then just hang up on him.
Yeah, it was somebody else's house. I can't remember who it was. Oh, so good. All right, let's go. Royals. Oh, I didn't hit free content. MLB ownership is free for today, and PGA Top Golfers are both free for today. See, when you got an early MLB lock, you can kind of just go off the rails a little bit. I want to go back and watch a couple of those best quotes of the money manager. Marvin.
Yeah. I was thinking Martin, but yeah, it's Marvin.
It's definitely Marvin. He was fantastic. The Michael Bublé quote is my favorite one, and I'm just blanking on it now because I'm like thinking about it too hard. So good. Drama says something about not being able to get something. He's like, maybe it's because you're fucking ugly.
I do remember that.
Like, he's just so deadpan about it. Like, he's got no time for their nonsense.
Right.
Oh man, I love Entourage. What a great show.
So many good characters.
Criminally, like, I loved the movie too. Like, it's obviously not like a cinematic masterpiece or anything, but it was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I didn't understand. Like, I never understand the critiques of that show or shows like that. Where like, yeah, it's not supposed to be that. Like, it's an entertaining show. It's funny. It's got good characters. Like,
it's a show about my life. Like, I don't mean like I'm Vince or something like that, but it's you hanging out with your boys, just like busting each other's balls for 30 minutes.
Right.
Like it's incredibly relatable because it's just a bunch of guys talking shit to each other in hilarious fashion.
Yeah,
it's
they just have
basically
more
like
money than me and my friends.
right.
It's a lot more social status.
It looks like it looks like our side DMs.
Yeah, the conversation wise, yeah.
Yeah, it's just you never know what's going to get said. So good. I remember when Turtle went sober for the Madden tourney. Someone was going to test positive for weed.
Yeah, they told him that they were drug testing.
Yeah, 95% of Royals and Angels. 4.6 run implied total for the Royals, 4.2 for the Angels. Brad Keller and Jansen Junk.
Oh, he's back.
Keller 13% owned, Junk 4% owned. I think both of those numbers look about right. Like I don't. It's a 7-game slate, so you're obviously going to get to some stragglers. Is Brad Keller the best paydown option?
I mean, he's facing the Angels, so probably 6,100 is just a cheap price tag there. I would certainly rather get to him than Corbin against the Dodgers. So yeah, like I think it's just a spot where he's not a good DFS pitcher, but he is facing the Angels, which is free strikeouts, and he's in a good pitcher's park. So sure.
Yeah, it's a weird one. But when Mike Trout's not in the Angels lineup, they're significantly worse than they normally are. Are you getting to Junk at all against the Royals, who are also running out a real trash lineup?
Junk lineup.
I see what you did there.
Probably not too much. Like I doubt it's going to be that necessary here. I think the Keller looks better. 10 starts at AAA this year, 48 and 2/3 innings pitched, 20% strikeout percentage, 5.65 xFIP. Steamer projects him, or Zips projects him for a 16.9% strikeout percentage going forward. The bat has him at 20%. Like he's probably underpriced just because he's so cheap, but still not somebody that I think I really need to get to.
Okay. Then we need to talk about offense here. We'll start with the Royals because they're pulling significantly more ownership. They are 4th in aggregate ownership, 7th in top stack. Meanwhile, the Angels are 5th in aggregate ownership. A giant gap between the Royals and Angels, 4 full percentage points. Basically the exact same top stack odds. Both of these teams are 1 and 2 in top value. Is the Royals ownership off-putting to you right now? Do you see yourself getting here? I mean, they've got 4 guys in the lineup at 2K, another one at 2,100. I mean, this lineup is basically free.
Yeah, and I mean, I always have this issue with Kansas City where I don't really like the idea of them, but then I also get to them because A, they're cheap, or B, they just have guys that they're good players, play really weak relatively positions. So you end up getting to them. The ownership here isn't crazy to me. Like Michael A. Taylor is leading the way at 16%. He's 2K. But then, Merrifield, 14%, Benintendi at 14%, Melendez at 11%. All of those guys look fine. It is a pretty weak lineup overall, though, like you said. Still no Bobby Witt. So it's, I mean, I think Melendez, Merrifield, Benintendi, Rivera at 2K. Those guys all look pretty good. You don't have Pasquantino today. So I understand why they're getting ownership. I think those guys individually look pretty good. But it is also a tough park to hit in and an overall pretty shitty lineup.
Does that make the Angels more appealing to you just because we've got the same sort of top stack odds, but we're just taking a giant discount in ownership?
Yeah, you're also talking more expensive at the top. Well, really just Ohtani, I guess, at 5,900. Ward at 3,900 looks good. Keller, I think, is a better pitcher than Junk. But yeah, I am somewhat interested in the Angels here just because they are getting less ownership, like you said. Ohtani obviously is great. Ward is cheap. Walsh is cheap. You have some power at catcher with Suzuki. So realistically, both of these lineups are absolutely garbage, but they're also pretty inexpensive on the whole.
Yeah, it's a really tricky spot just because like I see myself, I could see the path of getting to a bunch of Royals just because and Angels just because of how cheap these price tags are. But I've got the Angels lineup at an aggregate 102 WRC plus. I've got the Royals at aggregate 99. I mean, that is truly piss poor.
Right. And keep in mind, I mean, obviously, like you realize this, but when you say the Angels have an aggregate 102, that's Shohei Ohtani and his like 150 pulling up everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, the 5 through 8, 85, 78, 88, 82 is real difficult to do. I mean, we're talking about a lot of guys that probably shouldn't be in the majors.
Yeah.
So
And I do think there are some potential cash options in this game too. Like I just
Yeah.
crunched my top 20 lineups just to see what they look like. Nobody like dominating nobody like clearly standing out, but Michael Taylor was in 2 out of 20. So were Merrifield and Rivera. Rivera actually happens to be in my top projected ones. So they're guys where they're not going to be your first guy in, but if you land on them, they're certainly fine.
Yeah, I mean, Rivera, a flat 2K third baseman, is just going to be in that conversation by default. It really wouldn't even matter who was pitching for the Angels. You just don't get guys in the top 4 spots of the order at the flat minimum on a regular position.
It kind of comes down to like, are you playing third base? You're basically playing, I think, you are playing Moncada, Hampson, or Rivera. And Hampson's like in your lineup no matter what. It's just a matter of is he in the outfield or at third base.
Right. Anything else that we should be touching on for the Royals or Angels?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, let's go to Dodgers and Nationals. 5.5 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.3 for the Nats. Andrew Heaney and Patrick Corbin. Heaney, 2% owned. Patrick Corbin, 1% owned. 9,800 for Heaney. Is he limited?
That's a good question. I'd actually meant to look that up and then totally forgot.
He's got to be limited if he's 2% owned, right? Because that's wrong.
I mean, he's almost 10K.
I mean, 2 on a 7-gamer in this economy? Let's just say this. I got him significantly more than 2%, barring limitations. 75 pitches per Jamie Delaney and Ritz. Which is...
yeah, there's... I was going to say...
What's he going, 4 innings?
Him to be... Like, I mean, I expect him to be limited. I didn't expect him to be, like, clearly good to go.
Yeah.
Um,
Is there any justification with the 75 pitch limit that you can get to him?
Yeah, it said... So the blurb on DraftKings says, could be limited to around 75 pitches. Went 5 innings in his most recent rehab start, July 21st. Yeah, I mean, I have a difficult time wanting to get to him at that price.
Okay. Yeah, if 75 pitches is sort of the answer, then it's just not going to be enough. I don't think.
So in our top pitchers tool, we have him. Yeah, so we have him at 14.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I have him at right around there, like 12%. So like going under-owned, but also for him to be somebody you need, it's more likely, like, 1, you're going to need him to have a really good, like, efficient start while still getting strikeouts. But 2, you're going to need, Webb and Gallen and Gray all to just be, like, mediocre.
Yeah, that's sort of the real issue here. Can he be okay and functional? Yes. You're going to need one of Burns and Javier to be a real problem. Like, that's... If that even mildly works out, then Heaney is irrelevant. That's where it starts to get tricky. So I just reran. I cut 3 outs off of his projection and reran my crunch. He is no longer. I'm right with you now. Somewhere in that like 10% range.
Yeah,
and that's just sort of a quirk of the way that these things need to run because doesn't really have a right tail at this point.
Right. Like looking at the guys that show up below him for me, like he came in around Logan Webb, which you could certainly argue Webb should probably be higher just given that he's going to go deeper. But then like the guys he's ahead of, pitchers in Coors Field, Chris Archer, Patrick Corbin, Jansen Junk, Cole Irvin, Marco Gonzalez. I mean, yeah, I'll take 75 pitches from Heaney over those guys.
Correct. Alrighty. Corbin?
Nope.
That seems pretty easy, right? You don't think that Corbin looks good here against the righty power of the Dodgers?
I think he looks the opposite of that, as surprising as that is. 215 expected ISO to righties this year, going up against a Dodgers team that obviously just has a lot of right-handed power. Mookie Betts, Turner, Smith, other Turner, Thompson, all look really good. Ansel Alberto's in the starting lineup. He'll probably be pinch hit for at some point, but he's a cheap second base option. I mean, they are loading up righties here. The only lefties in the lineup are Freeman and Lux.
Yeah. And obviously it's not like Freeman's coming out of a lineup for anybody. So let's talk about those Dodgers then. 3rd in top stack, 3rd in ownership. They're 3rd in my top stack as well. You should just have a bunch of Dodgers for sure. My only question to you, I guess, and we can detail the Dodgers because there's clearly cash options here. How do you feel about the Dodgers? Or, you know what? We'll put a pin in it because we're going to talk about Rockies and White Sox next. So let's just talk Dodgers then. Certainly someone like Trey Turner, Will Smith, all viable for cash, but oh boy, is the top of this lineup expensive.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously the issue is just trying to get to them, but whichever ones you get to, like if you can afford them in your cash lineup, then they're good. Turner is clearly a top shortstop option, but from a cash standpoint, he is more expensive than Tim Anderson. Will Smith is a top catcher option, but he's also expensive. Betts, I think, is probably the guy most likely to be in your cash lineup. Trace Thompson, probably second most likely, just because he is so cheap. But any of those guys, if you happen to build a lineup where you can fit them, they're obviously good plays.
Yeah. It's all going to be a money thing here because those top 4 guys have big salaries and fully warranted elite level hitters too. So do you see yourself, like, I'm guessing one of the Dodgers, Rockies, or White Sox are going to fall off for you, and you're probably a little bit heavier on another one. Are you expecting to get to a lot of Dodgers? Because they seem like an interestingly easy stack to get to because of how cheap the bottom of the lineup is.
Right. And then also, like, you have Brad Keller that you can get to pretty easily as well. I'll have a better answer most likely by the end of the show. But my guess right now is that I probably get to the Dodgers here. They're, as a whole, pulling less ownership than the White Sox. Between those 3, my guess is that the White Sox are the ones that fall off a little bit.
All righty. Let's see. Is there anything else we should touch on for the Dodgers? I would say no. Are the Nationals appealing to you at all? 12th in our top stack tool, 10th in ownership. So maybe a little bit under owned. Going to be I don't know. There's nothing here for me really.
Yeah, I don't really see much here. I mean, we know Andrew Heaney will give up power, but like, where's that coming from in this lineup? Juan Soto is always a good play, but he is lefty-lefty. Victor Robles leading off at 2K does give you a decent value bat that you can use. You can use him to get away from, for example, Michael A. Taylor at that price point, but or to pivot off of Thompson on the other side of this game, but still doesn't look great. Josh Bell and Nelson Cruz are okay. Yeah, I mean, there's power upside for these right-handed bats plus Soto, but I don't think they're any sort of a priority for me.
Yeah, I think like the Soto Bell Cruz trio, if that's a 3, the 3-man part of a 5-3 is fine. Just no priorities here for Washington. I got nothing else here.
Me neither.
Alrighty, then let's talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be PrizePicks. I'm repping the brand today too. These shirts are so comfortable. I said it on the process show this morning. If you can get your hands on some PrizePicks merch, you should do it because it's ultra comfortable. These shirts are so soft. What you should also do is sign up at PrizePicks using the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, so that you can get a $100 match deposit bonus, which means if you put in $50, you don't get 100, you only get 50. But if you put in 100, they will match with 100. We've got plenty of tools at Stokastic.com that will help you out for your PrizePicks plays. We've got a bunch of PrizePicks videos that would be great. I know Eric's been incredibly hot in his PrizePicks video, so I hope you guys are watching those. I'm going to hit Adam with a prop or two from PrizePicks, and it's not even just baseball. They've got so much ridiculous stuff. I'm looking at it right now. You can do WNBA, PGA, soccer, tennis, golf, the basketball tournament, KBO, F1, CFL, trucks, whatever the hell that is, MMA, NASCAR, Xfinity, lacrosse. You can get futures in college football and the NFL. Just a wild site right now. You can get into all sorts of different stuff. I'm going to hit Adam with
for what it's worth, as counterintuitive as it sounds, trucks is when they race trucks.
Yeah, sure. But like, trucks could also be some sort of video game at this point too.
Sure.
Like, I don't like. I'm going to click on trucks.
I mean, I only know for sure because I've played it in DFS.
You played trucks? Jesus. Yeah. John Hunter Nemechek running at the Lucas Oil Raceway. Do you think he goes over 37.5 NASCAR points?
Yeah, man.
Obviously. These guys have pictures. That's incredible. All right, let's talk baseball. Let's talk pitcher fantasy scores. Let's start with the big man for today, Corbin Burnes. Over under 42.5.
Under.
I have it as the under, but at the same time, I'm closer than I normally are for some of these things. Like I got him at 40, so it's not one that I would want to take, but be aware of it. Now we'll hit, let's see. Who else have we talked about? We haven't talked about him. The rest of these guys are playing tonight. We got to go to Brad Keller. Brad Keller over under 24.5.
Over.
Yeah, I actually would take the over as well, but not by a ton. Probably more of a stay away for me than anything else, but
I actually think it looks pretty good.
There we go. Do we have one more? Yeah, we'll do one more. We'll hit where are hitters? Hitters. Is that not there? Strikeouts, home runs. No, hitter fantasy score. I am blind. We're going to go to the opposite side of Brad Keller. Over under 8 fantasy points for Shohei Ohtani.
Over.
Yeah, I got him at 8.7, so I would happily go that direction as well. Guys, go check out PrizePicks and try to get their gear. It's comfortable. And get some Stokastic gear, too. I assume we still have it.
Do we? I was actually wondering that the other day if we had it.
I legitimately don't know. If we do, buy it. If we don't, email us about it, so we'll bring it back. Rockies and White Sox. 5.4 run implied total for the Rocks, 5.9 for the Sox. Antonio Senzatella and Lucas Giolito. No ownership going to Senzatella. I can't imagine there's a scenario where you think that's a good idea. $7,500 Giolito, though. Should we talk about it?
He's mildly interesting, I guess, just from like a talent standpoint at 7,500. He has a 26.4% strikeout percentage, 3.72 xFIP. That being said, I don't think I really get there. Still a pitcher in cores. Yeah, I don't think I really get to him.
Okay. More likely to get to Logan. I know we didn't get to it. More likely to get to Logan Webb or Giolito?
Webb.
More likely to get to Brad Keller or Giolito?
Keller for sure.
Okay. Interesting. I've got Giolito by 0.3 of a point, but we'll see. That's not a lot considering Keller's significantly cheaper, but
yeah, I mean, I have Keller by like 3 points.
Jesus. Okay. Let's talk bats. White Sox first.
Giolito showed up in my top 3.5% of the time. Keller 14.5%.
Yeah, I got Giolito a bit higher than that. Doesn't matter. I tend to have pitchers in core. I mean, I don't have Senzatella, but pitchers like Giolito tend to show up a little bit more for me in cores. Let's talk White Sox. Number 1 in ownership, 25% aggregate ownership for the White Sox. That is exactly where they are in top stack. What are we doing with the White Sox against Senzatella? Because some of these guys, we got Tim Anderson, 30% owned. The rest of these guys are in the 20s. Is that a problem to you?
Yeah, I mean, like, they're obviously good plays. It's a 7-game slate. They're in cores. It's daytime, so it's like pushing 90 degrees there. Senzatella doesn't miss a lot of bats. He's not a horrible pitcher at preventing runs, but anytime you're talking about somebody that doesn't miss bats in cores, there's obvious upside. The issue is just the ownership, I think. And I kind of mentioned it before. You look at the Rockies, you look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers obviously in a very good spot. The Rockies in a tougher spot, but also in cores. Just not getting quite as much ownership as the White Sox. So I still want to use those guys to, because they're really good plays, but I think it's more likely I use them as like 3-mans or one-offs than get a lot of 5-man White Sox stacks.
Yeah. Do you like the Rockies side of this one more than the White Sox?
In tournaments, relative to ownership, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, Rockies right now, second in top stack, second in ownership. None of that's surprising.
Basically,
I've got these teams a little bit closer in top stack. I'm wondering what you're feeling.
So I have the White Sox as the highest. I have them ahead in terms of top stack, but I have the White Sox more over-owned than the Rockies or the Dodgers. I have the Rockies and Dodgers basically owned correctly, and then the White Sox a little bit too popular.
I am on the same boat as you. I have the White Sox a little bit lower in top stack, bigger negative leverage. Rockies are closer to neutral. Dodgers are closer to neutral. So you mentioned it before that you think you'll end up being a little bit lighter on the White Sox. How would you rank Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox right now?
That order.
There we go.
But again, I will most likely, unless Fantasy Cruncher crashes in the next 20 minutes, have a better answer on what I'm actually playing before the show ends.
Considering I have known you for a while now, the more likely scenario is that you have a better answer for us after the show ends.
Yeah, after lock.
The more likely scenario is that you have no idea what the answer is at lock. So there's also that. So for the people that are waiting with bated breath, you're probably going to die of lack of oxygen. All right. From a cash perspective, you're getting pretty much everybody out of Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox, right?
I would think so, yeah. Throw Kansas City in there also.
As just like for you personally?
What?
Yeah, okay. There's just like, I mean, the second most expensive person in the White Sox lineup is still under 5K. Like the Rockies aren't all that expensive. It seems like we're going to get most of this out of Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox.
Yeah, I think it's like you're going to those teams and then you're throwing in there's a good chance you're throwing in like one Kansas City guy to finish your lineup.
Yeah, that's a 7 of 8 is you're going to be hard pressed to find not 7 of 8 in Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox. We'll see if whatever the guy from Twitter was watching the show. We'll see what kind of cash lineup he puts together.
I didn't post cash today since I was doing the show. So
too bad.
But like looking at what my cash lineup most likely would have been, it's 5 White Sox, Hampson, Betts, and then Rivera.
Let me run a crunch quickly with no randomness on. Just look at like my top 25 lineups. Oh yeah, that's a lot of White Sox. Pollock everywhere. Tim Anderson everywhere. Burns, Javier, immediate combination. Grandal, Abreu, Moncada everywhere for the most part. Alberto, Trace Thompson. And then I get to O'Hearn and Merrifield as 2 Royals, but it's White Sox, White Sox, White Sox, White Sox, White Sox, Dodger, Dodger, Royal, Rocky, Royal, Dodger, Rocky, Rocky. So yeah, we know where we're going.
Yeah.
The really, only non-guy there is Christian Yelich.
Just jamming in in cash, just jamming in White Sox, playing Garrett Hampson at 2,400. Yeah. Probably playing at least one Dodger. I'd said before, I think it's most likely to be Mookie. And then in a lot of those, it's just going to be either Whit Merrifield or Rivera or maybe like Michael A. Taylor, just like closing out your lineup.
All right. Anything else we should talk about here from a Coors perspective? Look, here's a question. Like, let's say that you're looking at a 5-man stack here on the Rockies side or the White Sox side. Let's just even say more White Sox side. I know you're not going to have Burns, Javier. Like you're running into the exact same lineup as everybody else. Who do you think is like, what's your most likely scenario for a pivot there if you're running out a White Sox stack? Like, is that where you're going to get to a 5-man with, like, is that where you can dust off a Giolito? Is this
I was
where
going to say, like, you could
use
Giolito there. You can use Logan Webb. You can use Keller. That's not a bad spot to just roll the dice on Andrew Heaney and hope that you get some absurd, like, 8 strikeout in 75 pitch game.
Okay. All right, let's go to Athletics and Astros. 2.9 run implied total for Oakland, 4.1 for the Stros. Cole Irvin and Christian Javier. Cole Irvin not really getting any ownership, nor should he. Christian Javier getting all of the ownership, and he should. 8,700 for his strikeout repertoire in Oakland. This looks great.
Yeah, it looks really good. That's, I think, actually my favorite spot. Obviously you're nitpicking between him and Burns, but getting that salary discount and, facing the A's in Oakland, it's a predominantly right-handed lineup, or I guess it's pretty much split. 5 righties, 4 lefties, but 3 righties in the top 5. Javier's good against lefties, but has just been absolutely lights out against righties. 27% strikeout percentage against lefties this year, 41.9% against righties. Not giving up a lot of power to either side. Good park, great matchup, good price tag. I love Christian Javier.
Yeah, I don't really know what else we could add here. And this is not a spot where we talked about the Twins on the opposite side of Burns being relevant. I don't think the opposite is true here. I don't know how you could justify going to Oakland today, unless you are that guy that's just like, look, the only thing I'm going to have are Twins and A's today.
Right. Like I can make a case for Minnesota much easier than I can make a case for Oakland.
Yeah. Oakland's legitimately bad. The park is atrocious for what we want to do here. Whereas with Minnesota, it's like, oh, okay, like Byron Buxton is one of the bats we could talk about. There's not a Buxton in this A's lineup.
Right.
They would love it, I'm sure, but that's not the case here. What about the Astros side of this one? 9th in our top stack tool, 10th in ownership. Why aren't these guys getting owned? Is this just they're getting pinched out by Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox?
I think so, yeah. Irvin's an okay pitcher, but certainly not good enough that you would typically shy away from them with the Astros. No Bregman in the lineup certainly makes it uglier here. The trade-off is that you have a cheap Diaz batting cleanup, you have cheap Gurriel hitting second, but it's kind of just a bad Houston lineup, all things considered. Still obviously they don't have Brantley, they haven't for a while, but no Bregman, lefty for Alvarez and Tucker, which isn't a huge deal. They're just really good hitters overall, but obviously not ideal. So I think it's that, and then also the good players, namely Tucker, Alvarez, and Altuve, are pretty expensive, and I don't think the spot's as good as it is for the Dodgers.
Here's the real problem for Houston, and Dubon having shortstop eligibility sort of saves it because he's also outfield. Here is the lineup positionality for DraftKings: second, first, outfield, 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 outfield / shortstop, outfield, and then a catcher that probably shouldn't be in the majors.
Right.
They're just a really hard team to get to because 5 of the 9 guys only have outfield eligibility. You are limited in the amount of stacks that you can just simply make of Houston. And that is where it starts to get really problematic. And that is why I think we're seeing low aggregate ownership. I actually think that trying to prioritize Houston is interesting here. You're going to end up with a lot of Altuve and Gurriel by default because you're just going to run out of combinations. Like Altuve, Gurriel, and to a lesser extent, Dubon probably have to be in most of your stacks because otherwise you're just going to have the entire Astros outfield.
Right. Yeah. Diaz having outfield eligibility only is really frustrating from a stacking perspective. If you give Diaz like third base eligibility, this stack just looks a lot better.
Yeah. They're just not going to show up all that frequently because they're so difficult to put. Like a stack just doesn't exist. Not good. Right. Not good. But pay attention to them because they are getting slept on, in my opinion. Like our top stack odds, 5.6%, our ownership, 1.9. I had them a little bit higher in top stack.
I have them around there in top stack.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at 6.4. So if we just want to call it 6, like it's not, that's about where we're at here. That's 3 times the field. I got nothing else here.
Me neither.
Guys, hit that like button if you can. We have, I don't even know how many people are in here right now. 438 people, 93 likes. We should easily get up over that 100 mark. And then you guys should sign up at Stokastic using the promo code MLB Live. One big word, all caps, MLB Live. Get 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus weekly. It gives you access to everything. I know that the promo code says MLB Live. It covers everything that we have behind the scenes. So you'll get access to our golf stuff. And if you do it quickly, you'll have it for tomorrow. You'll get access to our MMA content. Big pay-per-view coming up this Saturday. We've got F1 behind the scenes. All sorts of great stuff behind the paywall at Stokastic. You could access it all using that promo code MLB Live. One big word. Diamondbacks and Giants. 2 games to go. 3.9 run implied total for Arizona, 4 for the Giants. Zach Gallen, Logan Webb. Gallen 8,100, 35% owned. Logan Webb 9,400, 5% owned. Which guy do you want more of here?
So I mean, kind of different equations, like different price tags, totally different ownership. I like Gallen at 8,100. I think that looks good. The Giants aren't a bad offense, but there are some strikeouts there. Gallen striking out 23.5% of hitters with a 3.82 xFIP this year. So he's pulling more ownership. He also should be at that price. Webb on the other side, like I'm not going to get to as much of him as I am Gallen, but he is somebody that I like using, in those like White Sox stacks, for example, like we were talking about, because it is still a good matchup for him. It's a solid park to pitch in. He's a good enough pitcher. Fully stretched out through over 100 pitches last time out, 20.7% strikeout percentage, 3.37 xFIP, pulling like 7% ownership. So very, very different plays. Like I think I get to more Gallen, but I do like Webb as a low-owned contrarian option where you have more popular stacks.
Yeah, a little surprised to see Webb only be 5% owned. It just feels like it should be a little bit higher here, but he just doesn't miss enough bats. Good real-life pitcher, not the best fantasy pitcher, and I think that's what's complicating matters here. But, if you get Arizona with a sub-4 implied total, I think that is appealing. I'm just surprised to see the gap be 35-5 in ownership. Like, I get that they're in a slightly different salary tier, but whew, that is a giant separation. Get it? Guess not.
What'd you say?
I said it's a giant separation.
It's
it's not all that important.
Like I heard what you said, it just didn't even click.
Sure. Does the 35% ownership to Gallen concern you at all?
A little bit. Like,
Okay.
I think that on this slate, it makes sense though, because when you look, like, where if you're in that price range, where else are you going? You know, obviously Christian Javier at 8,700, but John Gray is $900 more expensive, so there's no guarantee you can get to him instead of Gallen. Cole Irvin against the Astros, you know, yeah, sure, he's getting a 9-1 ownership discount, but certainly isn't nearly as good an option as Zach Gallen. Then there's like sort of just nobody else there. Giolito in cores. So I think the ownership on Gallen does make sense from that standpoint.
I would like to take some from Gallen and give it to Giolito here. That would be the only spot that I see that would naturally want to, like, if Giolito's 1 and Gallen's 35, that's wrong to me. Even if we consider Giolito to end up being like 3 and Gallen, and let's just say Gallen ends up at like 30, even 10-1 feels preposterous to me. So I would happily get like 10% of Giolito.
It's still just
because I think he's got some real upside.
It's still like yeah, he does. But it's still dependent on like what the rest of your lineups look like. Like, I think there's a big enough gap for me between Gallen and Giolito where I need a really good reason to get to Giolito. I'm not going to just be throwing him in the lineups in place of Gallen.
I like the Giolito as the SP2 in your White Sox stacks for today. I like that correlation. I like the fact that he's unowned. That would be the spot where I'd be looking to go most to try to offset some of that ridiculous White Sox ownership. You know, you go Javier, Giolito, and then you got a lot of money left over. All right, bats here. Giants are 9th in top stack, 11th in ownership, pretty positive leverage. Diamondbacks are 11th in top stack, 8th in ownership, pretty neutral. Do you like the Giants? I do pretty much every day, and I feel like it never goes well.
Yeah, it seems like I get to them a lot as well. I don't really like them too much here. I do think that, you know, Gallen is on a different level than Javier and Burns in terms of being able to attack popular pitchers. 150 expected ISO to lefties, 153 to righties this year. So still not like he gives up a ton of power, but you do have reasonably priced or just flat out cheap Brandon Belt. Jock Peterson's reasonably priced. Is Tommy La Stella really 2K?
I don't know. This lineup came
really
out
2K.
after I started the show.
No, he is really 2K. So you have him at 2K. You have Luis Gonzalez at 2K. It's a really, really cheap lineup. If I'm going to get to a lineup against one of the popular pitchers, I do think the Giants are the one that I get to. I'll have an actual answer for that in a second because I just finished in Cruncher.
Well, there you go. I don't have much interest in the Diamondback side of this one.
No, me neither.
Like, I don't think they're very good. I think Webb is good. They're properly owned. They're like my 10th favorite team. So I can't advocate for Arizona, but the Giants are a team that I think is showing some positive leverage just in their own hitters and their ownership, notwithstanding the fact that you get Zach Gallen on the opposite side, who's in a third of all lineups. I think there's some appeal here for San Francisco. Did I kill enough time for you to have that crunch?
Yeah, I'm like exactly even with the field on San Francisco.
Okay.
To answer what we talked about earlier, I'm actually overweight on the Rockies, even with the field on the White Sox, and under on the Dodgers.
Oh, definitely. Okay, so the exact opposite of the way that you said it. Perfect.
And jamming the Brewers, apparently.
Okay. Giolito?
0.
Okay.
I mean, given again, I don't love that. Giolito's the type of play that I would have made a lot before I started just using projections and optimizers and stuff. Like, if I was building by hand, I'd be playing Giolito.
Okay.
As is, I'm not. But no, got to Javier is my highest owned pitcher, followed actually by Gallen, followed by Burns, then Gray and Keller, with a little bit of Gonzalez and Irvin stragglers.
That sounds fun. Anything else in this one?
Yeah.
Ready to close it out?
Yep.
Mariners and Rangers, 4 runs on both sides. Marco Gonzalez and John Gray. Gonzalez getting like 5% ownership seems about right. John Gray, 21% owned, and that seems about right to me. I actually had him a little bit higher than that. You've obviously touched on your actual ownership of Gray at this point. Talk to me about him here against Seattle.
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, it's an okay spot. The Mariners aren't the best matchup, but it is a really good park to pitch in. Gray himself is a good pitcher, 27% strikeout percentage, 3.28 xFIP. The ownership just makes sense to me. I'm right around that ownership as well, right around 20%. He's just a good pitcher. He's more expensive than Javier, which obviously keeps him from being a priority. He's more expensive than Gallen, but I understand the ownership, and I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. And then Gonzalez is fine for a couple stragglers, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really want Gonzalez, but you are pretty limited on what you're going to do as far as cheap pitching goes today. So yeah, I have a little bit, but not expecting much out of it.
Rangers bats are sort of just like exactly what they should be. Fifth in top stack, seventh in ownership. They just seem like another team in that tier right behind the clear three best options. Are you getting to Texas? We have Marcus Semien pulling a bunch of ownership. The rest of this is pretty balanced.
Yeah, they're another team where I'm actually just like exactly in line with projected ownership.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say here. On a different day, Semien would probably be really interesting from a cash perspective. Second short eligibility. He is pulling some ownership, but he's just going to get drowned out by Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox, and implied totals a run and a half higher. He's just not in the best spot for it completely. Is there anything for you on the Seattle side? Probably a little underowned, but at the same time, I don't know why. I don't know what we're looking for either.
Yeah, I don't see much there. Like, they're not getting ownership. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez is really good. You have Jesse Winker back in the lineup at 3,900, but it's not a good park to hit in. It's a really tough matchup. I'm just not really getting to them despite the low ownership.
All righty. Well, let's sum it all up here. Who are your favorite stacks for today?
This is a lot easier to answer when I actually have lineups built. Milwaukee, Colorado, and the White Sox.
Did not expect the Milwaukee one.
I'm fine with it, though. Like, that's my biggest stand on the slate by a good margin in terms of relative to ownership. But I mean, Archer is not a particularly good pitcher. Milwaukee does have power, so I understand why I got there.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised by it in the it's the Brewers. Like, it stands out.
There were also just a lot of
total.
For lack of a better phrase, a lot of just like kind of write-off offenses tonight where
Yeah.
it was just going to be really difficult for me to get to a lot of them. Milwaukee's one of those ones that was kind of in the middle where it's just like, okay, well, the matchup's good. It's not as good as a few others, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, the last 6 teams we talked about had the implied totals of 2.9, 4.1, 3.9, 4, 4, and 4. Like, none of that's any good. We already know Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox are pulling big time numbers. Like, the Brewers are right there on, like, they're very clearly in that group right after the clear top 3.
Right.
And like taking a stand on one of those teams makes sense.
Like, they're getting like half the ownership of the Dodgers, who are getting less than the other 2 teams.
Right. And like, I think they're way closer in top stack odds than the ownership implies.
Right.
Favorite pitchers for today?
Javier. Hang on. I wasn't on that page. Javier, I know I had number 1. Burns, Gallen.
All righty. Anything else you think we should hit on before we get out of here?
If we take a minute, I'll know who like my actual highest owned hitters are.
I never, ever would have expected you to be the person that was like, yo, make the show go longer. I was about to get you out at 2 on the dot. And you're like, no, man.
Well, I was just finishing putting them in, so I'll have.
That's how you know you're not scrambling at all right now.
Yeah, no, my lineups are done.
Because I was able to ask you a question and you answered it immediately.
And then said to stay longer.
Yeah.
Just uploaded my lineup, so now I just need to put them back in the cruncher and see what I have.
Okay, well, that's good. And for those wondering, I didn't play this early slate. I am officially tapping out to trying to play on a live before lock because it makes me want to burn my house down.
Yeah, so I kind of had already talked about my pitcher exposures, but as far as hitters go, I'm prepared to be really annoyed at how much Milwaukee I have. Hampson's in half my lineups.
Jesus. You didn't even finish saying it.
Yeah, so Christian Javier is my highest owned player at 69%, followed by Hampson at 50. Pollock at 39, Bryant at 30. Then it starts, just kind of flatten out hitter wise. But yeah, a lot of like I said, Rockies, Brewers, White Sox predominantly. Marcus Semien, 16%, kind of just stands out because it's not like I have a lot of Texas. I just have a lot of him.
Yeah. Well, there we go, everybody. You got the goods from Adam today. Good luck on this early slate. Again, we will have Deeper Dive Live Before Lock coming up later tonight, so keep your eyes on the Stokastic YouTube channel. Check out all of the other content. Do you have GPP videos today? Or are they already out?
They are not already out. I'm about to start on them now and then get yelled at for how late they came out.
Well, it's weird. It's one of those weird slates, it's all chopped up. You got it. Anyway, guys, go watch those GPP videos when they come out. Check out Eric's PrizePicks videos. They are crushing right now, so get on the good side of that. We're out of here, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Good luck. Peace.